This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Welcome to Higher Health, the podcast that elevates your understanding of health beyond the conventional into a realm where mind, body, and spirit align. If you're ready to rise above the noise of traditional health approaches and connect deeply with your inner wisdom, you're in the right place. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Rogers, a heart-centered, Harvard-trained epidemiologist, researcher, medical intuitive, and transformational health and longevity expert. In this space, we explore the profound journey of health and well-being, where every choice aligns with your highest self. Together, we'll unlock the true essence of being healthy, empowered, and whole. Welcome back to Higher Health with Dr. Elizabeth Rogers. I'm so very glad and very grateful that you're here and that you joined me for this episode. Today, we're going to talk about a really important topic. It's critical when it comes to your optimal health and well-being, in particular, your higher health. Relationships. We spend our lives in and out of so many different kinds of them. They can help us be more of who we are, and they can help us lose ourselves. They can help us be healthy, and they can make us sick. Over the course of this show, I will talk to you about all the different kinds and types of relationships, because when it comes to your ability to be healthy and to heal, it's that important. Today, we're going to talk about romantic or intimate relationships and how they impact us and our health. One of my areas of expertise, as you know, if you've been listening to the show or you know me at all, is root causes. A lot of people think when we talk about root causes that it's all about physical health, that they're going to hear about things like toxins, pathogens, heavy metals, stuff like that. And yes, that's part of the story, but that's only part of it. My perspective on root causes goes beyond the physical realm because it needs to, because you, as a human being, go beyond the physical realm. I've told you before on this show that there are at least 8 different categories of root causes, and that physical root causes are only one of those categories. You are a multidimensional being who is physical and non-physical at the same time. Your existence spans different levels and dimensions, so of course, root causes do too. If you want to be healthy and have optimal longevity, which to me means living the highest quality of life possible for as long as possible, then it's important to consider how the people in your life impact your health and longevity. Relationships are one of the other categories of root causes. So it's not exaggerating to say that any relationship you have could literally make or break your health. Since one of the people we spend the most time with, other than ourselves, is often a romantic or intimate partner, and shout out to all my single people out there, trust me, this one's still for you. It makes sense for us to talk about this kind of relationship first, and I was guided to do exactly that and share my own personal experience with a prior negative relationship as the framework for our conversation. From time to time on this show, I've mentioned that I was once in an emotionally abusive relationship, and it happened to be my last relationship before I met my husband, who is my soulmate. And by the way, who has agreed to be a guest on this show so that we can talk about the other side of intimate relationships, the ones that are healthy and not toxic. A little history on my relationship status over the years. Yikes. Get ready. I only had one boyfriend in high school, and he was really wonderful. In fact, I was too blind to see at the time that he was one of only 2 people in my life who unconditionally loved me. And newsflash, The other person was not a family member of mine. And don't worry, we will get to talking about family and toxic family members. And oh, I've got stories for you. We broke up right before college and went to the same college. It wasn't until years later, toward the end of my undergraduate career, that I realized what I just said, that he loved me unconditionally. And I knew I made a mistake. I tried to get him back, but it didn't happen. Someday, when I'm guided to, I'll tell you that whole story. But at the time, I thought I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. And I believed with all my heart I'd never find someone who would love me like that again. I really did. So, with that lie planted in my mind as a truth, I created the story that I'd never find someone like that again because it was the universe's way of punishing me for walking away from the best thing that ever happened to me, the only person who'd ever really loved me. I believed I was destined to roam the earth for the rest of my life without a soulmate because I'd already thrown mine away. I didn't know at the time that I was wrong. So, for over a decade, I bounced from one unhealthy relationship to another. Some were worse than others. I never loved any single one of them, not even a little. Some of them I didn't even like at all. One guy I dated for an entire year because he asked me to be his girlfriend, and I felt too bad to say no. So I said yes. Talk about people pleaser problem. We'll save that for another episode. That guy dumped me on my birthday. What a nice touch. Then there were two stalkers sandwiched in there. The pasta guy, go back and listen to that podcast about him if you want to hear that gem of a story, and probably a few others not worth remembering. The thing was, they all had one thing in common. In each and every one of those relationships, I would totally lose myself. I wasn't being healthy in any single one of those relationships. How could I be? I was completely disconnected from myself on every level. It was the only way I could exist inside of a relationship with each of them. Had I let myself actually connect to myself, I would have been so horrified. It would have shocked me out of my misery. And I would have immediately had the confidence to dump them and probably tell them what a loser they were too. But I never dumped any of them. The only guy I ever broke up with in my life, except for one, was the only one I ever loved, my boyfriend in high school. So inside of each relationship, I'd completely disconnect and disassociate from myself. I'd turn into a people pleasing fake Elizabeth who appeared to be happy in being the best girlfriend. I'd mold myself into whatever fake version of me I knew that person would like. I'd eat food I didn't even like. I'd go places I didn't want to go, but it didn't matter because that's what they wanted. I drank too much and smoked too much pot because the number I made myself, the easier it was to forget that I wasn't really happy and that I wasn't really being me. And in every single relationship, the real me knew deep down I didn't really belong. I didn't really want to be there. I didn't really love or even like this person. And I certainly didn't love or like the person I was being inside of that relationship. But for a while, it was a place to hide. For a while, it was easier than turning inward and facing myself, where I'd inevitably have a lot of work to do. Eventually, each relationship would end, not because I ended it, with the exception of one of the stalkers that a therapist helped me get rid of, even though my intuition was screaming inside that it needed to end. But eventually, but because eventually they'd leave me. And inside of each of those relationships, I became less healthy. My parting gift from each was a continued accumulation of physical, mental, and emotional health setbacks and symptoms. By the time I met the last guy before my husband, who I actually did love for a little while, I was never in love though. I could not have been more disconnected from myself. I had been battling chronic health issues at that point since my near death experience over a decade earlier. And while I was with this guy, Darren, the shit almost quite literally would eventually hit the fan. The story of how I met Darren is one I never thought I'd have the courage to tell, but it's one indication of how much I've changed. And I can truly say I am very far from the person I was back then today. When we met, I was smoking pot recreationally, but really I was using it to numb myself for a lot of reasons, including from the physical and emotional struggles I was having. It wasn't exactly legal to buy it yet, so I had a guy. One night I was at that guy's house, and it was only about a week after I'd been dumped on my birthday, so I was feeling particularly low. While I was there, Darren and a friend showed up to do the same thing I was doing. He sat down next to me and I thought he was cute. He asked me how I was doing, and I told him I just got dumped on my birthday. I remember he said something like, "Oh, I've got you beat. I just got dumped and lost my job." And he gave me a hug. I thought he was nice. I left before he and his friend did, and remember thinking I'd probably never see him again when I got to my car. A few nights later, I was at the bar with a friend and got a text from a number I didn't know. It was Darren. He said he got my number from the guy whose house we met at and asked if I wanted to go out for a drink. P.S. I don't drink alcohol anymore either. But I did at the time, and I'm sure you know, I said yes. So we met for a drink, and then we became inseparable pretty fast. Within a few weeks of our first date, we were in a relationship, and within about 6 weeks, we were moving in together. There's a lot more drama to this story that involves my family, but that's a story for another day. What I will say for now is that Darren really helped me get out of a very unhealthy living environment where I was living next door to one of my brothers. However, when I escaped one unhealthy environment, I didn't know at the time I was about to move into another one. Once Darren and I moved in together, things changed really fast. Our intimate life basically disappeared. We barely ever had sex. To the outside world, though, it appeared things were going well. He always held my hand when we were out in public. You know, the surface level, superficial, intimate connection was there, but it didn't go any further than that. One Sunday, we were on our way home from the grocery store, and he could tell something was wrong, and it was the first and only time he'd ever ask me if I was okay. I told him it was bothering me that we were never intimate. It had been over a month, and our relationship was so new. When we got home that day, he looked me in the eyes and said he didn't want this to come between us. I told him that I thought he should talk to someone, as in a professional, about it and get help. I told him even if there was something wrong, as in medically or otherwise, I would never leave him. I just wanted to help and I'd do anything to support him. That was the first and last time we'd ever have a positive conversation about this. So then I waited, and I waited some more. Weeks passed, another month passed, 3 months passed. Nothing. He never mentioned it again. I kept waiting for him to come home and tell me that he made an appointment to talk to someone or see a doctor. That day never came. The next time I brought it up, and every time after that, he only got angry and sometimes almost violent. He'd yell at me and say, "I don't like to touch or be touched. This is how I am, so just deal with it." If I dared to bring up that first conversation, he'd ramp up the violence and do things like kick the furniture across the room or throw things. Eventually, I stopped bringing it up because I was too scared. Along the way, his lying started. Well, I probably shouldn't say started because he was a pathological liar. I just finally figured it out. He was lying about basically everything, from big things to small things. He would tell me he was going to come home at a certain time and he'd show up 3 hours later. He'd disappear on, quote, business trips to Atlanta, Georgia, and not call for days. He made dinner reservations for my birthday and Valentine's Day, and I'd be sitting on our front porch an hour past the reservation time, still waiting for him to pick me up and wondering where he was. Eventually, I grew close with his dad and some other family, and I'd call him looking for Darren. No one ever knew where he was. We started comparing the stories Darren was telling us all to try and catch him in a lie. But he was telling us all the exact same thing. He was good. I'll give him that. One summer, my brother and I decided to go on a trip. to the beach, Myrtle Beach. If you're familiar with the United States at all, it's over on the East Coast. And Darren was coming along. Coincidentally or not, because there's no such thing, he finds out that he has to go to Atlanta for work again at the exact same time. He promises to meet us at the beach for the second half of the trip. Since the route to Atlanta and Myrtle Beach was the same for the first 8 hours and we were driving, I planned to ride with Darren partway, then we'd meet my brother and I'd go the rest of the way with him. Well, along that way, Darren got pulled over. I will never forget it. He was driving a truck he was supposed to be delivering to Atlanta for work. I was always convinced he was involved in something illegal. Like, I wondered if those cars were stuffed with hidden drugs or something. I never did figure it out, but I trust my intuition, even back then when I was so often disconnected from it and myself. The cops seriously pulled us over for more than a half hour. I was so scared and had no idea what was going on. At one point, I looked at Darren and said, if there's something going on that I need to know about, you better tell me right now. And he didn't say anything. The police searched the car and eventually found nothing and let us go. But I was shaken and not okay. I was convinced that Darren, his boss, and coworkers were just really good at hiding shit because they'd been doing it so long. Eventually, we met my brother, and I went the rest of the way to the beach, expecting to talk to Darren on the phone later and see him 3 days later. Except I didn't. I didn't hear from him, and I didn't see him. Instead, for 3 days, his phone went straight to voicemail. He never answered once, never called me once. With each passing hour on each passing day, my anxiety grew to an all-time high. I remember pacing the beach, swinging back and forth between extreme anger, anxiety, hurt, and fear, and eventually rage. I let myself be totally consumed with Darren and his lies and his disappearance that I didn't even let myself enjoy one moment of being at the beach. My brother had brought a girl who I didn't like along, so he was preoccupied. I felt alone, and I was alone. When Darren finally reappeared, he called me 3 days later and claimed he had been sick with food poisoning. I remember screaming on the phone. He couldn't have called to tell me that from his boss's phone or someone else's phone. Ugh. Looking back, I can't believe I put up with this bullshit and his lies. I can't believe I didn't tell him to fuck right off in that moment. But I didn't. I wasn't ready to reconnect with myself and reality. I just wanted him to come back. Then I could go back to staying lost. He eventually showed up for the last day and a half of the beach trip. Things continued to get worse from there. I couldn't question him or anything he said or did, or he'd lash out. I was so afraid the emotional abuse would turn physical that I didn't do or say anything. At one point, he needed a major oral surgery, and I paid for every penny, even co-signing a loan for him so he could get it covered since he didn't have insurance. I remember sitting there with his dad while he was in surgery, and I truly thought I was saving his life. I thought, this is the thing that will fix him and fix everything. His dad took us both back to our house after surgery, and he asked me if I was sure I could handle Darren, and I told him, of course. But when the anesthesia wore off, Darren turned into a monster, and I was actually scared he was going to hurt me. Looking back, he was clearly in withdrawal from whatever drugs he must have been abusing behind my back. He smoked cigarettes when we started dating, and I told him I'd never marry a smoker, so he, quote, quit. But I knew in my heart he didn't really, and I'm sure that was one of the things he was withdrawing from, but I'm also sure it wasn't the only thing. While things with Darren over the years continued in this way, my health continued to suffer. During the first year or two of our relationship, I had actually made a lot of improvements and done a lot of healing work, but it was mostly all on the physical level because that's where I was comfortable. I didn't want to go any deeper than that at the time. I'd been focusing on healing my root causes, and one of the most burdensome problems I was dealing with was chronic constipation, which was diagnosed as a lot of things throughout my journey. At that stage, it was IBS. I was doing all the quote right things, and Darren was actually being supportive of my lifestyle changes, but eventually I hit a wall. Despite doing all the quote right things, I couldn't seem to get any more improvement. It was like I hit a plateau or something. Then eventually, as time passed, my digestion started to get worse again. Eventually, it got so bad again that I was on the bathroom floor in pain, crying as I lay there in a ball. How could this be happening? I was trying so hard. I was doing my best. I was doing all the right things. Why was I getting worse? Wasn't there anyone who could help me? When I eventually got up and looked at myself in the mirror, it was like I was really looking at myself for the first time in a long time. And then I heard a voice. I don't know if it was my higher self, one of my guides or guardian angels, or just my own voice I'd been drowning out and numbing for way too long. It's you, she said. You're the one. You're the one you're looking for. And I knew what I had to do. I had to heal myself. There wasn't anyone else out there who could help. There wasn't anyone else out there who could do the work except for me. The same goes for you and for everyone. No one in the world can fix you and give you the health and life you want other than you and the answers you're searching for. They're inside of you. And on a deeper level that day, I knew this meant it was time. Time to get out of this relationship because the biggest part of the problem now was Darren. I knew right then and there that one of the root causes contributing to the IBS and my mental and emotional health going downhill fast was this relationship with Darren and the negative environment I was living in. I wish I could tell you that I broke up with him that day, but I didn't. I waited. Within a month, he broke up with me one night when my brother was on his way to our house to go out for his birthday with us. He just looked at the wall and said, I can't do this anymore. And even though I couldn't believe he was picking that night when we had plans, I didn't fight it. There's so much I could tell you about this relationship and how dark it got at times. But I've told you all you need to know for now, so we can move on to the most important part, talking about your higher health. I shared that while I was in this relationship, there was no intimacy, not unless substances were involved. And at that point, I just lay there praying for it to be over because I knew it wasn't based in love or a desire to be connected to me. Over the years, I've talked to and supported a lot of people who have been in or are choosing to stay in similar kinds of partnerships. Like me, people will say things like, well, I love them. Or I'd hear, there were some good times. And I did the same thing. I'd get up every day and hope it was the day that Darren would finally start to change. If you're in a relationship that doesn't make you feel good or that you recognize is negative or unhealthy, then why are you staying? It's not a healthy choice. I wasn't choosing me or my optimal health when I was choosing to stay with Darren. You cannot hang on to a few good moments and wait for someone to change. Healthy relationships encounter challenges because we're human, but when the negative times outweigh the positive, it's not a healthy relationship. And if you're waiting for someone to change, how long are you willing to wait? A lot of people on this planet right now are not going to choose to change. They're not going to choose to do their work. Change is uncomfortable and can feel unsafe, although it's the safest and best thing for us because we are here to learn and grow, which requires a conscious choice to change. But because change creates discomfort for people, Many will choose to stay in the comfort zone and not change. Like Darren, they will do whatever they can to avoid change, even if it's to their detriment. If you know you want to grow, if you know you want to do the work, if you know you want to be as healthy as possible for as long as possible, and if you know you want to experience higher health, being connected to yourself, mind, body, and spirit, and to your source, so that every choice you make is in alignment with your highest self, then it's important to choose to be in relationships with people who also want to grow with you. And that includes intimate relationships. You don't have to necessarily grow at the exact same pace in the exact same way as your partner or spouse, but if you're choosing to walk the path and they're choosing to stand still, you'll never be in the same place. And honestly, they'll hold you back. Remember that you are energy. It's what you're made of. And your frequency and your cells respond to the energy of the environment around you. And over time, they will align with the frequency of your environment and the people you choose to surround yourself with. So, if being and feeling healthy is a priority to you, and I sure hope it is, then if you're in a toxic, unhealthy relationship, you will not be able to live in alignment with your optimal energy, nor will it be able to rise. Your frequency will lower to match that of the person you are in a relationship with, and so will the cells in your body. And you will quite literally be held back. You could be the most positive person and surround yourself with crystals or whatever your jam is to protect yourself energetically, but that will only get you so far. This is simply a truth of being a human who is a bioelectromechanical being made of energy. If you're in a relationship with someone who you recognize needs to change so they can be healthier, it's a beautiful gift that you can see their potential. We are all mirrors, and you can be a mirror for that person so they can reflect and see that they have work to do. And if they do that work, the potential you're reflecting back to them is within their reach, but they may never want to look in the mirror. Darren did not. I always saw the potential in him to be something better, healthier, someone so much more than he was being. But he was never going to choose to do his work so he could cross the bridge to that potential. Everyone has potential. Not everyone is going to reach it. I thought I could save Darren. I thought if I saved him, then it would be the thing he needed to be what I was waiting for. It is not our job to save anyone but ourselves. It is not your job to fix anyone or save anyone. In fact, it is not your responsibility. You are your responsibility. You and your health and your growth, that's your responsibility. So focus on you. It's the only way. This is so important. After Darren and I were done, I remember thinking to myself, I don't want a relationship that's a project ever again. I have enough projects in my life. At the time, finishing my doctorate was my project. My work is my project. I am my project. I don't need any other person to be my project. I've got enough on my plate just with the work I need to do on myself. Don't make a relationship your project. Be open and upfront with someone before your relationship gets serious, or at least when it's starting to. Tell the person you're dating or married to or in a partnership with that you want someone who wants to do their work too. You want someone who wants to grow with you. You want someone who wants to be healthy with you. That's what I did when I met my husband. And from the very beginning, we were on the same page. To this day, we are in total alignment. We talked about how important it was for us to live long and healthy lives. We talked about how being optimally healthy for as long as possible was a priority and a high value for each of us. We still talk about it today, and we will never stop. We decided and made a commitment together over 7 years ago that we were going to align our lives with the value of optimal health, well being, and longevity. We still honor that commitment together every single day. We still talk about how we can be even healthier together. We stay connected to this value in all we do. We align every choice we make together with being healthy. We talk about higher health often and how we can each be even more connected to ourselves, mind, body, and spirit, and to our source, which just helps our mutual connection grow. We help each other to be healthy. We encourage each other to be healthy. We give each other ideas on how we can make improvements, and we cheer each other on. It's a conscious choice, and I'm the luckiest human because I know that I'm with my soulmate, and I know that my soulmate is in total alignment with me on all things, and we help each other be the healthiest we can be. Your relationship should enhance your health. It should not be a barrier to you being and feeling healthy. Don't compromise your health for anyone. If you find that you're making choices you'd rather not for or because of your intimate partner, this should be a big red flag. And if you're experiencing any kind of health issues or setbacks, mental, emotional, physical, or otherwise, and you know you're in an unhealthy relationship, it's absolutely connected. This relationship is absolutely a root cause contributing to your less than optimal health. That's not necessarily to say it is the root cause. Although I'd been making progress and improvements and doing a lot of healing inside of my relationship with Darren, as I shared, I eventually hit a wall, then started going backward in some ways, especially with my digestion. I wasn't going to achieve any more progress with my health unless I got out of that relationship. I was doing, quote, all the right things. I was eating as healthy as possible. I was exercising regularly. I was going to yoga at least 5 days a week. Every time I'd go to yoga, I'd finally get a break from the constant anxiety I felt living in that negative and abusive environment with Darren. For 75 minutes, I would finally get connected. I would just breathe. But the moment I walked out of yoga class, I'd immediately feel the anxiety return as I left to go and wait to see if he was going to show up when he said, or if he was going to disappear, or to wait for whatever bullshit and lies were waiting at home for me that day. Being healthy and healing isn't about just doing the physical level things that optimize our health. It's more than that. Being healthy and living a healthy lifestyle is also about choosing to live in a healthy environment. It's about co creating that healthy environment with your source and your intimate partner. If you can only breathe for a little while, then spend the rest of your time feeling anxious or stressed or depressed or crappy in any capacity, you're not being healthy. Yes, those yoga classes were helpful for me, but overall, I was not being healthy. I was choosing to be in a relationship and live in an environment that was dominated by negativity. No wonder my digestive issues started to get worse. We cannot sacrifice ourselves and our health for someone else, no matter who that person is, and especially for our intimate partners. And if you're feeling pretty healthy, but you know you're in an unhealthy relationship and environment, don't be surprised when symptoms or setbacks start to pop up. Someone that loves you truly and unconditionally, just as much as they love themselves, would never want you to or expect you to sacrifice your health or even compromise it. It's a narcissistic tendency if someone else does this to you or does things like Darren did to me, tells you once that they'll make a change, like he did the first time I talked to him about our lack of intimacy, and then tells you the opposite, denies it, or gets angry every time you bring it up after that. unless you want to spend the rest of your life on the hamster wheel, stuck in the vicious cycle of chronic health issues, or just never feeling healthy or your best. You cannot be with someone who doesn't let you grow and who doesn't want to grow too. Ever since I met my husband back in 2017, my life has continuously improved and I've become healthier. Sure, I've had setbacks, and eventually I'll tell you about all of them, but he helped me heal from them. He helped me turn inward so that I could uncover the deeper root causes and do the work I needed to completely move on from that setback. I do the same for him. My husband, Paul, and I can both say we're the healthiest and happiest we've ever been. We choose to be healthy together. We choose to align our lives with the healthiest choices possible. We choose to grow together. We make this conscious choice every day, and we do it side by side, hand in hand. Remember when I told you that I thought all the losers I dated were my inevitable fate because the universe was punishing me for walking away from my high school boyfriend, the only one who'd ever loved me unconditionally? I was wrong. He was put in my life to teach me. He was the first person in my life who showed me what unconditional love looked and felt like. He gave me a reference point so that when my soulmate showed up down the road, I'd know that feeling again. Now, I can really say I'm with the love of my life. Paul is my best friend, the person who knows me better than anyone on this planet, my soulmate, and the most extraordinary husband. We will continue to be examples of what being optimally healthy looks like, and we will continue to strive for higher health together. So, to anyone out there wondering if your person is out there, wondering if you're destined to be alone, wondering if it's possible to find someone who aligns with you and wants to grow and be healthy with you, let me be your living example. It's absolutely possible. And your person is out there looking for you too. But you have to create the space for them to come in. Don't clog it up with people and relationships that hold you back or that you can't be completely healthy inside of. If you cannot be all of yourself with someone, or you feel like the person you're with only has some of what you really want in a relationship, set yourself free. You might be surprised who shows up when you least expect it. This isn't only the case with intimate relationships. The same thing goes with friends, family, and any kind of relationship. I've got stories about them all for you, and trust me, we'll get to those too. Walking away can feel scary, but if you're in an unhealthy relationship, you know in your heart that you are not being healthy. Getting out of that relationship and away from that person is the healthiest choice you can make. Always pick you. You'll never regret it, and you're worth it. Paul and I say all the time, there's no better feeling than feeling healthy. Maybe the most important message of all. Whatever you may be searching for in a relationship, you aren't going to find it until you find yourself. Then the person that's meant for you will help you shine all that you are in your uniqueness. And that's what being healthy is all about. Being so deeply connected to yourself, mind, body, and spirit, and your source, that you continue to get to know yourself better and better. Find yourself first. My intuition tells me this episode will resonate deeply with so many of you out there. And if you enjoy the podcast and you enjoy reading, then I just want to invite you to follow my Substack, which is also called Higher Health with Dr. Elizabeth Rogers. We are building a really wonderful and divinely aligned positive community there. And it would make my heart very full if you decided to be a part of it. Sending so much love. I hope you can feel it and the positive energy infused into this episode today. And remember, the world needs you and your light. Trust yourself and your heart. And the way to do that is by staying connected to yourself, mind, body, and spirit, and to your source. That's all that being healthy truly is. See you next time. Thank you so much for listening to Higher Health with Dr. Elizabeth Rogers. If you enjoyed the show today, it would mean so very much to me if you subscribe to the show and leave an honest, positive review. You can easily subscribe by going to the upper right-hand corner of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and press the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner. Also, be sure to sign up for my email list and join my private Substack community to get even more content, value, and support on your health and well-being journey. You'll find these links in the show notes. Sending you so much positive and supportive energy today. I really hope you can feel it.